Nice! Well, welcome back everybody to Andertons TV. I've got a special guest here today. I can't even tell you what country she's from because she's from most of them. But it's Carmen Vandenberg here. Just finished up doing some dates in the UK with your band Bones. And before you fly off to see your family for Christmas, you very gracefully agreed to come to Guildford and just chat with me about guitars and music and stuff. But in some weird, mad, quirky coincidence, this is not your first time to Guildford, is it?
No.
So tell us, how do you know my beautiful town?
Guildford, I mean, I've come into your shop numerous times. I came here when I was 18, moved from Italy. I came to study at ACM. This is where I got my picks and my strings. So, yeah, that was 8 or 9 years ago.
Has it changed much, Guildford, as you drove through? Because Guildford never really changes.
I didn't get to see much. We kind of came straight here, but I'm pretty sure it's similar. You tell me.
Well, no, Guildford never changes.
Okay.
So look, we just had a nice lunch and I've got to know Carmen a little bit. I never met you when you were here the first time, so this is great to meet you for the first time. And you've had a amazing career so far as a guitar player. Your band Bones has had great success. You've worked with Jeff Beck, which is crazy, as well as lots of session work, and it's taken you all around the world. But let's talk about, I'm kind of fascinated, we were talking a little bit over lunch, that growing up from a fairly early age, you had quite a classically sort of trained violin introduction to musical instruments. So how did that happen? Tell me about that.
So when I was born in Madrid and then lived in Barcelona. And when I was 5, I moved to London, and the school that my parents signed me up to was like an international school, and there was like a mandatory instrument, and it was like the flute, the cello, or the violin. And so I started with the violin at the age of 5, and it was with the Suzuki method, which is a Japanese method that's pretty, rigid, and it's like practicing hours and stuff like that. So coming from a family that, like, my parents, neither of them played musical instruments, but they really wanted us to, so they kind of like, supported us in doing that. And then by the age of 6 or 7, I'd kind of like seen what the guitar was and really wanted to play that instead.
So come on, what was that moment that I think most guitar players can remember that sort of, who was the first person that you saw and you just went, what is that? I need to try that. I suppose at 6 or 7, you're pretty young still, aren't you? So what, can you remember what that was?
Yeah. I've said it a few times. I feel like sometimes now I take the piss out of myself because it was a VHS cassette of my dad had of Woodstock, and it was Hendrix, and it was pretty much like, and my bandmate Rosie would make fun of me because I always do this, but it's literally like I grabbed the violin, and instead of doing this, I just started to pretend to play guitar. And so it just kind of, I kind of really knew what I wanted to do, and I was like, that's it.
Do you remember from that tape, are you zoning straight in on the Hendrix bit, or was it some of the other performances, or just the whole thing?
It was that bit, it was like that performance that was like the main thing. Obviously with Santana, there's a bunch of other things that really, but that caught my full attention at that age. I just remember it.
It's a lot to take in, I think, at 6 or 7 years old. But so what was that? Did your mum and dad get you a little, Spanish guitar or something? And what did you do?
Yeah, there was that, and then there was a combination that my best friend in school at the time, I didn't speak English, and I was like the weird kid in the back of the classroom, and I became friends with this other new kid, and this new kid was called Django Stewart, and his dad is Dave Stewart from Eurythmics. So at that age, I had no idea, but I kept on going over like, you know, play dates to this house, and this house was full of guitars, and that just reaffirmed like that's what I want to do. And I kept on trying these things, and then I eventually asked my parents if, you know, I could get a little guitar, and they got me a 3/4 classical guitar. And then I remember my first guitar lessons were with an elderly lady who taught classical music, and she lived 2 floors above us. So I would go in the evenings in my pajamas and get a little classical lesson.
Was that... I have these recollections of being, you know, again, 6 or 7 years old and learning to play the piano and feeling like I never connected and I was only doing it because my parents wanted to do it. But I don't get that sense with you. There must have been some innate music thing inside you that you know, didn't matter that it was an elderly lady wanting to teach you, you know, I don't know, some 70-year difference between the two of you. You connected and you just felt the vibe, right?
Yeah, I think pretty soon the violin became the chore, and the guitar was like part of the rebellious side of like, I want to do this, and I'm going to do it, even if, you know, even, I'm not sure at that age, my dad would have said it, but like people around, it's like, oh wow, you'll never be a guitarist. I was so determined that this is all I want to do. So
is that your personality? Do you, if you set your mind to something, do you generally do it, or is guitar, you know, unusual in that sense?
I think this is the thing I've set my mind to most in my life. Other things, yeah, I guess so, but they've always kind of surrounded this one career path that I set forward.
So who was that, I'm really trying to think now at what age I became conscious of the names of the people I was seeing playing the guitar. Because I certainly think in the early days it was just, could have been anybody playing the guitar. But who were the ones, you know, Woodstock aside, you know, perhaps as you got into your early teens, you know, who were the guitar players that perhaps began to shape your musicality? So,
I mean, for me, it's just another weird thing that, like, even my parents can't explain. Like, from a very young age, I got really fascinated with the blues. And my parents had, like, good record collection. As I said, they were music lovers. So there was a jukebox and there was, like, rock and roll and everything. But, like, my fascination and like, love from blues kind of just developed on its own. And so I guess the first names would be, like, B.B. King was, like, my dream to meet. And Albert Collins, Albert King, Freddie King, Stevie Ray, like, just you name it. And those were like the first names I kind of knew. And
I was surprised when because, you know, listening to the Bones stuff, it's not really a, you know, it's not really a sort of a there's not an obvious blues influence in there. So I was surprised when I think I read something about you rather than when we were talking earlier that said that, you know, you had a real fondness of the blues from an early age. But and I think you just dropped a little nugget there that you said that it was your dream to meet B.B. King, and you kind of implied that you did. Is that?
No, I didn't.
Oh, you didn't?
I didn't, and it was like one of the saddest days when he passed. You know, when you're like a few degrees of separation, it's just one of your heroes. But I ended up working with Buddy Guy, and, you know, through that Jeff tour, and got to tell him this story, and him and a producer that did Pass the Torch, the film about Buddy, then ended up giving me a signed Lucille because I told them how sad I was. I never got to meet him, so I have this like signed Lucille in a very safe place in LA.
I still think BB's people talk about the three kings, don't they? And everyone's got their kind of favourite, but I just, and the more I think at the age I was when I got into BB King, he was already, you know, must have been in his 70s, I would have thought, like that. And so it wasn't until after he died that I sort of deep dive back into some of the footage you see of him in the 60s and stuff, and it's just like, people often say about BB, it's like, you know, it's like he's got this vibrato and it's all very minimalistic and everything like that, but you go back at his early days and he was tearing it up. Like, what a player. But so, I mean, so your first sort of electric guitar sort of journey was quite blues based, was it? Did you have a little blues band or something and with some friends from school, or?
When I was in Italy, I had bands, but a lot of it was like covers to earn like 50 euros and playing,
Yeah.
you know, in the restaurants and stuff like that. I did have a band where we did some blues and fun, but it was just, that was more for ourselves. I think I started getting to play a lot of it a lot more once I got to Guildford. Piano bar and, and all those jam nights. And then obviously London, any chance I could get, I'd go to Ain't Nothing But the Blues or King's, you know, all of those jams. And I think a lot of it was developed here.
What was the point then through your teens, then heavily sort of blues influenced? Where do you think you started to develop your own style and technique? Because you know, if you've not listened to any of the Bones stuff, and Bones, when you're searching for it, I think you have to search Bones UK, otherwise you find a different Bones band. But so Bones UK. It's, I really like it, and it's not hardcore blues, you know, at all. Of course. It's kind of got a sort of a punky, rocky, sort of little bit angry kind of vibe to it, you know, and very minimalistic as well, which I like about it a lot. But where was that? You know, how did that come about? And perhaps tell us how you met Rosie as well, and you know, what was that meeting of minds?
So first of all, like the guitar thing, it's not just Rosie. When we first started the band, funny enough, it's this producer, a friend of ours called Filippo Cimatti, who, funny enough, I met at uni here in ACM, and he lives right behind. And when I met him, lived right behind in a small room. And so I think a lot of the way that the guitar style for Bones was developed was the two of us together. A lot of it has to do with Filippo and like the way you see that the blues thing will come out occasionally for like a little small moment and then tucked back in, because we wanted to create something a bit more modern. And I owe a lot to that, of that to Phil, and like working through that together, because we wanted to create something different for Bones that wasn't just rock riffs that have already been played. And that's what Rosie wanted as well. And Rosie and I met in Camden at the Blues Kitchen, and we like hit it off and decided to have a couple of whiskeys, and then started the band. And then I told her, hey, I know this little kid that went to uni with me in Guildford, right? Who'd be great for this. And that's kind of like how the whole project started.
Was there I mean, stylistically, who were you listening to at the time that you felt maybe influenced you, or was Bones genuinely kind of a discovery journey for you of stuff that you never really played before?
It was a discovery journey, but there was part of it was influenced by guitars such as like Jack White or Josh Homme, who still have that blues but are taking it in a different direction. And that's kind of always been, they even still have a bit more of a blues element than what the Bones thing, but I think it was the combination of all these very different minds, like Rosie with her lyrics, and Phil, who's came more from like electronic kind of world, and I think that's what created the sound.
It's a good sound, and I get it. You've got it's a junction of different musical paths kind of meeting together and creating something. It's really cool, and I think it's got a great, you know, it's got a great visual look to it that suits the music as well. So it's a very modern package. You know, you can sort of put everything together. But so now the Bones thing must have been fairly new, right? Maybe a year into the Bones thing when. So tell us about the Jeff Beck thing, because that's kind of like a crazy, you know, like this is. Every guitar player out there is just going to be green with envy now. But so tell us about that.
It was really just such a great experience overall. In a funny way, it all happened. I was at a birthday party of Roger Taylor, which I'd kind of known and worked with for a bit, and he was like, "Carmen, I really want you to meet somebody." I'm like, "Oh, who is it?" And I think it was Miami Beach. Like the manager of Queen, he used to call me Mini Jeff.
Right.
But anyway, Roger introduces me to Jeff, and the first thing I ever say to Jeff is, "Oh, you're Jeff Beck." And anyway, that's how I met him, and we just started talking about blues, and our love for Albert Collins came out. He asked me what my favorite guitarist was, and I said, just the first name came to mind was Albert Collins, and he said, no way, mine too. And then that's just like, so I went to his house, we started playing some guitar. He came to see a play that I was in at the Old Vic, and then eventually we invited him to one of the first ever Bones shows, and there must have been like 8 people and a dog, and then it was Jeff and his wife, Sandra, and Rosie's parents. I mean, it was like literally one of the first shows. And Jeff turned up, and it was just crazy. He took us out for an Indian meal that evening, and then asked Rosie and I if we wanted to write his next record with him, and we were just like, yeah, sure.
Are you like this the whole way through?
Yeah, no, I couldn't believe it the next day. Then we went and stayed with him, and the whole thing was like just a quick turnover, like a quick and exhilarating experience that, you know, sometimes you're in it, you don't realize what's happening or how amazing it is, because you're just like, we have to get this done. And it was written and recorded all in the space of 3 months. So it was just like...
Well then, and that's because he did the documentary or somebody did a documentary about Jeff around about that Loud Hailer kind of time. Yeah. So you've gone from literally being in Bones playing to 8 people to playing on Jeff Beck's album and now being on a TV documentary that he's in as well.
Yeah.
Are you... I watched that documentary maybe 3 or 4 years ago, like that, and I'm trying to remember now. I remember seeing you in it with different coloured hair, which is probably why I haven't put the put the two together. And that must have just been like, you do a really good job in that documentary of looking like you're totally cool and down with the whole thing and not flustered at all. But like, was that great acting on your part, or were you genuinely not flustered?
No, I was, but like as I said, when you're in it, you're just like doing, you know, it's you don't worry as much, you just try and get it done. The thing that happened that really flustered me is like when we did the record, which was again, you know, Filippo, our producer, produced that one, and it was me, Rosie, and Jeff like around a fireplace drinking Prosecco. It was just that when the record was done, Jeff was like, well, will you be my guitarist? Which obviously didn't mean just the songs of the record, but just like his whole repertoire, and I had like a couple of weeks to learn all of it. Which is not easy stuff, you know. There's plenty of guitarists that are like better players or session, you know, than I am. Like, that might think that's a piece of cake, but at 22, with you know, I was there more for like the writing and that other aspect. It was like pretty stressful to learn all of those tracks and to be able to nail it before the tour started. With again, like another one of my heroes, Buddy Guy, was just like the support. And then there was like the Hollywood Bowl with Steven Tyler and like all of these other guests, like 10 days into the tour. So I'll tell you that like I remember the interior design of most of the restrooms in Madison Square Hollywood, because I'd be so nervous before the show that I would throw up, and then I'd go and do the show fine, and no one would ever be able to tell that I was like going through that. But every night I'd be in my hotel room practicing. The moment I got off stage, I'd still practice. It was like that for the first full American tour. Then after that, I was like, I'm good.
I think this is, I mean, I kind of, you said when we were having lunch that, you know, you're a character on stage and you're quite a different person off stage, and that sometimes it's difficult to balance, you know, being the character when you're just, you know, normal day-to-day life. And I wonder how inspiring people will see that, because I can't imagine how like a 22-year-old person who, you know, goes to playing in a band like that to those kinds of audiences and isn't a complete nervous wreck.
Yeah.
So what?
23, I think.
23.
Yeah.
So what was? And you'd never told me you'd been an actor before either.
Yeah.
So is this like, is there an element of the Carmen Vandenberg that you see with the guitar around there? Is there an actress there, or is there or what?
No, it's not that. It's just, you know, it's like, it's a show, isn't it? The show must go on. It's just like you go on stage and you don't want to. I don't mind if my friends or the people I'm around know that I'm a vulnerable person, but when I'm on stage, I'm there to do what I'm good at doing, and I'm hopefully inspire people, or just, you know, do my job well and have fun while I'm doing it. So it's just like it's like a button or like a switch that just changes, and then you just go with it. Sometimes you might have a bad day, but you know, you can't let that bring you down. But it's still the same person. It's really hard to explain. It's just like a switch where you just like go into work mode. You know, you don't. Even people that go into the office don't behave the same way that they do when they're at home. I think it's the same thing. You become your version of who you are, but it's a different version.
And I think I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Albeit that I've not played anything like the kind of gigs you've played. Most of my gigs were to the 8 people, you know, 2 of whom are your parents and your dog, and not Jeff Beck.
Some of those are the best gigs.
Well, maybe. So, tell us about then. How long did you do the? Because I remember the album Loud Hailer was. In fact, it's super weird because I can almost hear the bit of Bones on that Loud Hailer record, and I don't know. You'll know better than me whether it was Loud Hailer influenced what you did with Bones afterwards, or whether Bones influenced Loud Hailer, or because it's not like a Jeff Beck album from 20 years ago, you know.
Well, Jeff basically just had the whole of Bones with him on top of it. Like the record was done with the same 3 people that do Bones, but Jeff was. So, you know, and Jeff had concepts and ideas and song ideas, but then we all worked with, you know, through them together. So it was just naturally the Bones part came out, but the main thing is Jeff, and I think he felt comfortable. We all felt comfortable. It was such an organic, thing that happened. It's such an organic, just experience overall.
Can you remember the first time that maybe you presented an idea to Jeff? Was there anything about him as a player where he would interpret ideas differently, and you just like mind-blowing? Because we were again talking over lunch that, you know, I'm not. One of the most amazing musical experiences of my whole life was seeing Jeff Beck at Ronnie Scott's at that kind of famous gig that he did. And yet I just went to that gig because I'd been offered free tickets from Fender to go to the gig. I wasn't this avid Jeff Beck fan. And even now I would sort of go, it's, you know, guitar instrumental music isn't necessarily what I would choose to listen to. But he's such an influential player, such a crazy talented player, and he makes the guitar sound like no one else can make it sound. But from a you know, I don't know, is it stuff like lead lines or chords or patterns that you might play, and does he just go, oh, here's how I would do that, and all of a sudden it's this weird magical moment?
Yeah, a lot of it was that. I mean, he just really makes the guitar sing, and when we were writing it, you know, it was a lot of bouncing back ideas. I think also being younger, I was less worried. You know, I was so in the, like, you know, I didn't really care what anybody thought. I was just like full of like ideas and stuff like that. I think you become a bit more self-conscious when the older you get, or worried about stuff. So I look back on it and I was like, how I was pretty fearless at the time. But then, you know, he would play something and I'd be blocked, like just staring at it. It would happen a lot actually live on stage, where I had to constantly remind myself to not stop playing, because you're just so in awe of what he's doing that you just like might just suddenly freeze because you just want to listen, and then it's like, oh no, shit, don't stop, don't forget to keep on playing your part. So yeah, there's a lot of those moments. I mean, Jeff wakes up and he makes his cup of tea with his guitar in his hands, you know, and being around that energy for like those 2 years was just so inspirational, and I learned so much just being next to it all the time.
I honestly can't imagine a more educational journey to go on as a guitar player. You know, that's insane. So okay, so the Jeff Beck thing finished. You're obviously still in touch with him, but you're doing your own thing now, or doing the Bones thing. So tell me about, music and touring and stuff with Bones and writing and what you've been up to recently, and then we'll do gear.
Yeah.
We'll definitely do gear after that. So yeah, bring us up to sort of date with Bones and where they're at.
So after the last tour with Jeff, which was Japan, and it was amazing, Rosie and I were kind of like ready to start Bones properly, because it was just like, it'd been like a teaser before, then we took that time off to do the Jeff thing, then we're like, but we were kind of tired of doing the same old. We'd already toured England and other bands and what we call the toilet tour, and we'd done that. We wanted like a fresh new start, and America seemed like a place where, for our genre of music, there's a lot of traction, it's just a bigger country, there's a thirst for that kind of like new rock. And we just like all looked at, do we have enough to even get us there in our bank accounts? And we just like saved up and left. The three of us with Filippo, we got a place, and we basically started the band there from scratch. So that's 4.5 years ago, 5 years ago. And then we had to get management, label, this and that, and it, again, a really interesting journey. Because then by the time we released our debut record, which was like 2 years ago now, which these past 2 years I don't count as time, and we all know why, because it's just not, it's not fair.
Yeah.
But anyway, 2 years ago we released our debut album. We all drunkenly got it tattooed. And 3 months after we released it, we got a Grammy nomination for one of our songs, which was just like mind-blowing, because that doesn't really happen to new bands. We thought that was crazy. And then shortly afterwards we were doing Seth Meyers, our first debut late night show, and while we were in the building in New York, the whole world shut down. It was the 12th of March.
Right.
And we were like supposed to be the last band with an audience. Then the audience got cancelled. Then they like cancelled us, our show being aired, because they were like, well, we're just gonna. They still filmed us, which was nice, but they were like, we're just gonna air it when it opens up again. And then we changed our flights and rushed back, to LA. We didn't want to get stuck in New York. And then that's, so, when you're just starting, we just got our feet going, and it's like, our lives are going to change. And then they changed for everybody. So that's fine. And we dealt with it, everybody in a different way. Rosie's much more like a worker and a doer, and she was writing a lot. And as I told you before, I kind of put the guitar down for the first time in my life and had a little bit of a crisis, and then got over it after a bit.
Built a house or something, didn't you?
Yes, I built a studio in a Shasta trailer out in the desert. But everybody dealt with it in a different way. I don't think there's no right or wrong way. It's just...
I think bands at your stage, or maybe even perhaps a bit earlier, COVID was devastating, wasn't it? Because you just had no... that's it. The rug is pulled out from underneath you, and there's no sort of back catalogue of stuff to kind of keep paying the bills or anything like that. So, was there a time where any of you just thought, maybe I just carry on being a carpenter? Or
no, there was never. We tried to do problem solving. We had this like budget that Monster gave us to do this like problem solving tour, which we did as much as we could, but the restrictions and everything kept on making it. But it was really interesting. We were doing like shows to one fan in a football field, or like drive-ins, or really interesting things to like problem solve. So we kept on doing stuff, and we were writing, and the album, like the second record's on its way. We just released a single. The rest of it's going to come out soon. But everything, not just us, we were slower. The industry is slower. Labels, just everything just seems to have taken a lot longer. But maybe it's like the universe telling us we all needed a second to see what life's about.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think everyone has to try and look for some kind of positive or silver lining out of the last 2 years. Otherwise, and I suppose musically, a lot of artists it did break the routine, and it did give them the opportunity to sort of take a breath and reevaluate. And I don't know. I mean, I suppose as human beings, we have to look for the positives in everything, don't we? Otherwise, it's like, what's the point? you know? But hey, that got deep quick. Anyway, so we'll talk about the new single and the new album right at the end, because everybody should go listen to that. It's very, very cool. But now what we need to do is geek out on gear. So, you have a relationship with the lovely people at Blackstar and have had for many years now. And that's kind of like exciting news, right? Because we've got your signature amplifier, and we've even got, are we allowed to show the little one? Or is that, we're not allowed to show the little one. Are we allowed to even leave the bit in the video where I say, are we allowed to see the little one? Okay, we can leave that bit in, but we just can't show them. So we're just gonna focus on the big one. And we're gonna look at your pedals, and this is your touring pedal board, not your studio pedal board, so we'll talk about that. And of course, you've got two fantastic guitars here. So where do you want to start?
I don't know, up to you. You pick.
Well, let's do the amps last then. Let's do signal chain.
Okay, cool.
So come on, I can see you have a guitar that to me is Jeff Beck inspired here around your neck. Is it actually a Jeff Beck Strat? What's the connection?
Yes. So this is the Jeff Beck model. The only difference is that when I started having to learn like all of his songs, I struggled with the fact that a lot of Strat necks have such a thick neck, and I have to play a lot of the stuff with the thumb on the top in order to play his parts. And so Jeff put me in contact with Billy Siegel from Fender, and we started building this Strat, which was basically we took the measurements of this guitar, whose neck like perfectly fits my hand.
Oh wow!
And we took the measurements, and then they built me a Strat with a.
Can I have it?
Yeah.
Little, I just want to, because I do remember the Jeff Beck Strat has a baseball bat on it, and this is. In fact, this is maybe even thinner than a modern C, isn't it?
Yeah.
But you've got the. I love this. So I didn't realise this. Whose idea was it for you to have like a Jeff Beck Strat for the Jeff Beck tour?
It was just both of us. I was just like, a lot of the time I had different guitars that I was playing, so we could have different tones. But sometimes when there's like a proper signature part of Jeff and I'm doing the rhythm and he's off, and it needs that Strat sound, I wanted to have the nearest thing to Jeff's Strat. And they sound very different.
Well, because he's stuck with this kind of original sort of dual roller nut, hasn't he? Long after Fender changed it to something else. So you got the locking tuners, and I can't remember. Is this the regular set that he has in here? And I remember he was same. Although there are some changes, I don't remember the heel joint on the original Jeff Beck. Maybe that you
there's a
spec
few
that.
things. Yeah, because again, my hand is thin, so like my hand is tiny, and I always struggle down there. So that's another thing.
Are they big hands? They are small hands, yeah. Fair enough.
So that's mine and Jeff's, every time I would do that.
I was about to say, hasn't he got like the world's biggest hands? Yeah.
Yeah, but he said that the difference between mine and his was his and Hendrix's. So that means Hendrix's were like.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a big misnomer as well, that people talk about, I've only got small hands or short fingers and I can't play guitar. It's like complete rubbish. You just got to find the right guitar for you. Was that playing with your thumb over the top? Was that a style that you had to kind of learn for the Beck thing, or had you, with the blues thing, were you generally playing those kind of chords over the top?
No, I'd done a bit of it, but nowhere near as much as I needed to.
Yeah, because I think if you've learned not doing it, I didn't learn. I was never taught to play that. In fact, I was the opposite. I was taught that was naughty and you shouldn't do this. So actually, it is. I don't naturally go to play chords like that, and it does inhibit me. I think sometimes if you're trying to play some of that old Hendrixy kind of stuff, or John Mayer or whatever, you have to play the thing. Well, that's very nice. So this isn't like a Carmen Vandenberg signature guitar or anything. This is just a guitar that you put together. Yeah. Todd Krause. Oh, Todd. He makes them for all the superstars, doesn't he, as well? So cool. So that's that. This though is like this. I feel like is your baby, right?
Yeah.
Is this the one that you would run back into the burning house to get if you had to?
This one comes into my hotel room every night, no matter where we are. It hardly ever really leaves my sight. It's been with me for like 10 years.
Do you buy a plane ticket when you go somewhere? Are you that obsessive?
No, but I will have arguments with flight attendants so that it comes on as carry-on.
Always makes me laugh whenever I see Joe Bonamassa on Instagram like that. He's in one plane seat and his guitar's in the plane.
Yeah, Brian does the same thing.
Does he? So tell us about this.
the day I can afford that, I'll definitely be doing that as well, because I'm so tired of having those arguments. So this one I got Denmark Street in London, a guitar shop called No Tom's Vintage Guitars. And, you know, it was one of those, we were talking about this over lunch, one of those magical moments when I picked it up. I just felt the energy and the wind. And, you know, I've never really been able to put it down since. And even when I couldn't quite get it, the first few days I would go to the shop and make sure nobody else played it, so that nobody else would like. You know, just
but you know, I was kind of saying that I always find it inspiring. I think I always worry, as I suppose someone that makes a living out of selling guitars, but also someone that's just like I think I believe in my heart about the positivity of music and that, and I always worry that one day the guitar will just be irrelevant, and there'll be a generation of kids that just won't want to do it. So when you said, you know, like you were getting up early so that you were at the store when it opened to play it, and you felt that, you know, and I know, and I still know now, I don't know when this video is going to go out, but we're a few weeks just before Christmas, and so there'll be tons and tons of mums and dads coming into the store to buy their kids their first guitar. And it's still, even now, it's that electric feeling when, you know, you see this 8-9-year-old kid with his red Squire Strat and doesn't know what to do with it, but already, like, the grin and their version of the wind around them is happening, and you're just sort of going, it's crazy when you think about how technology's moved forward so much over the last 100 years, and yet really this hasn't changed hardly at all, and yet it still does that same thing. You know?
And that smile that you see when a kid gets like their first instrument is just, it's priceless. Yeah.
So this is a 63.
But, you know, when I was, so the body and the neck, 63, but apparently needed some adjustments and some pieces were replaced. So it's not completely original, but I don't care.
It's original enough.
It's original for me.
Yeah.
And I love it so much.
And we were talking as well about, I mean, it took me a long time, took me, you know, 30 odd years of playing before I kind of really felt like the Telecaster was a good guitar for me, because I was always, I think I was always a nervous player or not a confident player, and the fact that on a Strat there just seemed to be, I could do this and I could do this, and it would be like, that would make an interesting noise, and it might cover over maybe the fact that, you know, I didn't know the right lick to play or whatever. And with a Telecaster, you're just like, I'm just bearing my soul to the world here. Like, you know, if I can't play, there's not much I can do here. So is that, you know, and you were saying as well, you're just like volume on 10, back pickup.
That's it.
So what, and it, is it just like, what's the right way of phrasing this? You know, it just allows you to express you as the player then, and it's all, you know, all about expression rather than finding a setting.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I feel like with the Tele, I work with it better when I know what I'm doing. For example, with Bones UK, it's my set. I know my parts, I know the sounds, and you're pretty determined about it. You're not just trying things out. There's moments where I'll switch back here, but you know, it's a very precise kind of sound and thought out tone. I'll still play a Tele at a blues jam or stuff like that. But it's at that point you can play around a bit with the tone and stuff like that. But I feel like you really need to know, or the way I feel comfortable playing it is when I know what I'm doing. Yeah. And then if I'm going to a session, or if I'm just writing or don't really, you know what direction a writing session or just a playing for somebody else is going to go, then I like the versatility of that, just because of all the different tones. But the directness of a Tele is irreplaceable.
Yeah. Have you gone like mad guitar buying yet? I mean, what number are we up to?
No, I mean, I've been lucky that, you know, Fender have given me quite a few, and like I've started working with Duesenberg as well. They've sent me a couple, and I love those guitars. I feel like I've been even offered to get a Gretsch, but for me, it's like, I like having achieved something, so there's like a pivotal moment for me to then be able to like deserve another guitar. Do you know what I mean? Okay. So I feel like I need to earn my guitars.
Do you like set yourself sort of goals in the sense of like, I've got to do this before I can get...
Yeah, right now, like I need to do something really cool, and then I'll be like, okay, maybe now I deserve another one. I feel like I don't want to, especially when you start getting things like given to you, which is it's amazing. But I don't want to. I feel like I don't want to be spoiled. Like, I want to earn my shit.
Yeah, I mean, so I always think that's one of those mad injustices of music, is that the more successful you become, the wealthier you become from the more stuff you get given, and the people out there who are on the first rung and, you know, just like trying to afford picks and stuff, don't get given anything. But, you know,
but I mean,
it's the way of the world.
To be honest, Blackstar and Fender were there for Bones from the start, which is something I think a few companies are trying to do, that outreach of like, let's support a few of the younger ones. But I always had that same thought as what you just explained, and that's why I kind of like I try to put a limit to how much I accept.
How many guitars has Jeff got?
Oh, he doesn't even know. They're all stacked. There's like some beautiful. He's got like a 53. So it's just stacked in his just all over the house, and I don't think he even knows, because he plays his main one. It's really funny how most of our heroes, like, you know, you have a main one and that one becomes the one that you.
I get that. I mean, I think
What's
I remember.
Yours?
That's a great question. I'm still very fond of. Actually, this is a bit freaky. Actually, this is because, and this isn't a completely contrived segment here. The first American Fender I had when I was about 18, that I was in a band with, was a parts. It was all Fender parts, but it was I couldn't afford stuff, so I bought like a second-hand neck and body from someone, and then I bought a scratch plate, you know, and then I was like buying pickups and stuff. And the internet, I'm not trying to sound old here, the internet didn't exist then, so it was all about just buying second-hand and bits from. I got most of it all through Andertons, because obviously it's where I was anyway. But it was the colour was the green with the pearl pickguard that was the kind of synonymous Jeff Beck kind of colour at the time. And I didn't buy it because of Jeff Beck. That was just the colour it was. And then, sorry Jeff, I actually resprayed it about 5 or 6 years later, but bizarrely into this colour and then I put a tortoiseshell pickguard on it as well, which I think it might. Where is it? It's here somewhere. Is it in the other room, Oz? Oh no, you're there, Oz. So I meant Chris. If there's a white Strat with a taut guard in there, that's it. So I'm kind of still a bit fond of that. In terms of go-to guitars, I have used the Telecaster a lot this year.
Yay.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I did. Yeah, I got into it, but I'm probably not. I probably don't set myself goals anymore. I just basically acquire.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what you do.
I just, you know, if you like something, and it's so easy having a guitar store to just sort of go, oh, we just won't sell that. They'll just carry on adding. I tell you what my most recent one is, which I did want you to see anyway, because I kind of just wonder just your perspective on it. So anyway, go through Strats, Teles, you know, all the guitars that have been around for like forever, and just kind of feeling like, what else is there? And then this mad Japanese company called Oopegg kind of came onto the radar, and it reminded me of like back in the, you know, if I look at when Japan first started making electric guitars, you know, sort of Yamaha and Ibanez, and they were like, we don't really know what we're doing, and they didn't even like pickups weren't called pickups. You'd have switches that would say microphone 1, microphone 2, microphone 3 on it, and it was all like, let's just go mad and put everything on the guitar so they'd be covered in switches. A real sort of, I don't know if it's like a Japanese sort of, you know, we must improve this, you know, there must be a better way. So it was all a bit mad and crazy, and this just sort of reminded me of that whole, like the madness of the sort of the first Japanese guitars that came out. And it's beautifully made. I mean, the Japanese craftsmanship's ridiculous. But it's got a P90 and a single coil and a humbucker and a mad Jazzmaster trem system and switches to do crazy things to it. But
wow.
Yeah, and I'm very much of a sort of, sometimes I need a new toy to find that inspiration to do something, you know, to play.
I completely agree with that. And whether it's like pedals or new guitar, that's what I find is really fun about going to a studio as well. That's really like got a wide variety. It's like it doesn't really need to be mine, but I just can try a bunch of different things. It might just like, a riff will come out because you just played through something that you've never played through before.
I think that's a great segue into pedals, because I think if you talk about things that you can do to inspire riffs, it's like you get into the world of Pogs and Octavias and heavy modulated stuff, and the thing you do with that belly pop kind of thing, and then all of a sudden it's like it's just riffs galore are coming out. So let's talk about your pedal board. Do you want me to?
Try that?
Yeah, I'll put this back down. So yeah, on the board then, this is what have you got? 10 pedals here, track 11 with the wah. Is that less or more than your session board?
So I have two kind of like smaller interchangeable ones for studios. One's bigger, one's smaller. Depends on what I'm doing and how much I really want to carry with me. This one is still missing two that I use on the Bones. There's an Earthquaker device, organizer, and a whammy that are just not with me today because I also have to add them. I need to get a new board as well. But that was just the easy way of bringing everything from the States.
Yeah, no worries.
But yeah, this is what I use with Bones UK on tour since we finished literally yesterday. Your
basic tone, is it typically to have two clean amps running pretty hot, pretty high, but then gain from pedal boards, or
so both of these are always on the second channel actually. They're never on the clean channel. And what I do is my gain on the amp will be at like 5 o'clock. Mm-hmm. So it means that the clean is just already quite crunchy.
Yeah.
And then I just build on top. So the main sound is just one pedal.
I love that compression that happens as soon as you hit the note, and it's like the rig just goes, give me a second here I come, like that. Yeah. But it's like, I guess that's a mix of the pedal doing a little bit of that and the amps doing a bit of that as well. It sounds killer.
So Blackstar, what they did with these amps is amazing. They make like loads of room for all these pedals to go on them. And what I do is I have them both running at the same time with kind of like slightly different EQs. Mm-hmm. And then I jumped straight to the amp.
That's all right. Amps and pedals, it's all one, isn't it?
So you know how the Blackstars have that ISF kind of feature. So I've got one facing one way and one the other way.
Right. Okay.
And then the mixture of the two gets this tone.
That is a big sound, isn't it?
I
tell you what is also super refreshing, and I just love the fact that you like playing loud.
Yeah.
Because it's the whole digital thing, which I struggle with, because I see it used everywhere, and I don't like it. It's like, I don't know what it is. I'm a bit anti-digital. And I think that over the last year or so, what I've realised, it's not the tone that I don't like, it's the lack of volume. And so what is it about volume that you think, is it just exciting? Is it just, and I mean in that real sense that you as a human being, you just get excited by loud noise?
I mean, I get excited when my amps are both really loud on stage, and I get excited even more when the front of house puts it through the PA because it's even louder. So it's just, that feeling for me is irreplaceable. And I struggle a lot with in-ears. I can't. And I had to use them for the Jeff, and a lot of the time our amps are facing backwards, and I struggle with not having the actual physical air of the sound, passing.
I know what you mean.
Through my legs. So
I'm surprised that I always had this idea that someone like Jeff would just tell the front of house and everything, it's just like, just suck it up, I'm going loud.
Oh, Jeff is the loudest. It's just everybody else needs to be. Jeff had, no one can stand on his side of the stage. He's so loud, and he's got tinnitus. But it's he's the loudest person I've ever heard.
Because most musicians now, a lot of musicians rather now just say it's either the front of house or it's the MD or whatever. They're backing a pop star type singer, and it's just like, yeah, there's no amps, or if there is amps, it's all crazy low volume and everything's in here. And I could take your tone, like as in we could take your tone and we could replicate it exactly, but have it quiet, and it just I wouldn't like it as much.
No,
it wouldn't inspire me to like want to rock out with it.
I agree, and it changes also just for writing. For example, if I'm trying to write for Bones, I need to be loud and I need to have my pedals and I need to have a bunch of stuff, because otherwise I'll just be writing really soft things, and just like pretty chords and stuff like that. And it's just that that's a different kind of writing. It's not wrong or anything, but that's what will come out of my playing if my volume's not as loud and if I've got nice pretty reverb and stuff like that. So I completely agree. Like, in order to get that inspiration and to start playing a certain kind of style of thing, you need to have volume. So
we only got one pedal through this, so obviously in the interest of making this interview not 5 hours long, I suppose we better just quickly. So you got so the Supro drive, is that your go-to, the Supro?
Sorry.
So do you then use the Archer to layer on top of that, or is the Archer just a different driven tone?
Just a different tone. That's a
much more classic kind of classic old school rock.
You can have it anywhere.
That's a great pedal.
Yeah, I love it. And I had it quite low right now, but it normally stands up there.
And then, you've got the Solo Dallas, which that's the sort of like the recreation of the preamp that Angus Young allegedly used from his wireless rig or something like that. So is that again another boost type pedal, or do you use it on its own, or what?
It's a boost. It's like for solos. If I'm on a clean and I just need it to be a bit thicker, I'll use that. Or literally with this, and then just for a solo, it just boosts everything up.
And I guess the two pedals that are having like the craziest impact on your tone are going to be the Pog and the Octava. Give us a quick demo of like, a riff where you'd use a tone like that.
All of them? I would take the reverb off from the amp, so.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is why the electric guitar is the best instrument in the world, because what else can you do that with? It's just mental. You got a couple of delays there, haven't you, with the carbon copy? Reverb, obviously you got reverb on the amps, but you got do you have sort of like reverb on reverb type layered sounds, or is that if you're going to switch the reverb off the amp, you just need to be able to switch it on?
So normally for a Bones show, I will have the reverb kind of off the amps, and this just gives me the chance to put it on. There's one song that I prefer the reverb from the amp. There's one song that I run back and put it on the amp, and then I take it back off. But these come with a foot switch, so either option is great. But I like that as just an option if at a certain point I just want to quickly put a bit of reverb and take it back off.
And then the final pedal, you do a bit of your sort of Ed O'Brien style, just down on the floor, just doing crazy stuff on there. So what, is that, presumably that's at some point in the Bones set, is it? You just got some sort of...
Yeah, it's a song, and I've used it in loads of different ways in the studio and got really weird sounds and stuff like that from it. But it's kind of set for just a part in the set. Which is,
you should show people, because it sounds pretty cool. I love that you don't even need to play a note. You just turn the pedal on and there it is. Right, let's give the amps some love. So the sort of the DNA, I suppose, in this amplifier comes from the Artist series that you used before. But what did you ask Blackstar to try and change on that, and what were you trying to achieve?
Well, So they knew how much I loved the Artist 30, and I think a lot of the work came already from them and their engineering of like creating a platform that would be, you know, really good at taking all these pedals as well. And I wanted an amp that had a bit more room in the gain, because there's always like, my thing was that I'd like an amp that if I didn't have any of this and I just went to a gig, a blues gig, and I only had the foot switch or whatever, I could be able to have a clean sound and a really good distorted sound. Because when you crank that gain up in the master, it's a full-on drive. And that's kind of like, we worked on that. We did a lot of testing with like different speakers and stuff like that. And overall, it was just such a beautiful like process and experience.
So it's a slightly kind of oversized open back 112. The 30 was a 212, wasn't it, originally, I think?
Was it? Yeah, it was.
So was that just because you wanted to do two in stereo and everything, just try and get it a little smaller so that each one wasn't quite so massive?
No, I think it just came up like that was the design that we wanted, and just I didn't want it any bigger. I've always wanted to lean on the smaller side.
I like the Art Deco kind of
logo.
CV logo. Yeah, that's pretty cool. And speaker-wise, do you know what choice you made on the
Celestion,
speaker?
Right? Yes.
So that's look. I mean, it's a great sounding amplifier. I really like what they've done with the kind of like, it's like green tweed, isn't it? I've never really seen that before.
Yeah, it's like teal.
The whole thing's got like an Art Deco vibe about it. That's
what we went for.
That's your thing, is it? Right. No, I like it a lot. And these are limited, I think, as well. 130 or something made in the world. Is there a significance to that number? It's like your lucky number or something like that, or just
no, not really.
But they had enough green Tolex to make 130 of them. That was probably what it was. I mean, it's a beautiful amplifier, and congratulations. It must be super cool to have signature gear, right?
No, it's
another
crazy.
like guitar player tick thing, isn't it? Just play with Jeff Beck, have a signature amplifier. That's it. Done.
Yeah, done. I can
and nominated for a Grammy as well. We'll just add that one on there as well. Tick. Not too bad. Not too bad. We're going to jam out, I think. We'll do something raucous because it'll be fun. What's left to do? What's left to achieve? I mean, it's a silly question really, because I'm sure you've got your whole life ahead of you and there's loads more to do. But what's left on the bucket list?
Just a lot more. I mean, I think I'm writing my own music and doing a bunch of that kind of stuff as well. Definitely this next Bones record is going to be lots of fun to tour and put out there in the world. And then I just want to keep on working. I love working, and I love playing, and I love playing with different kind of people, and I love just I want to keep on learning.
Yeah.
And, you know, whether it's like learning about more gear and like changing my board up next year, or just like, you know, just learning in general and experiencing music with other people, I think is one of my favorite things.
Look, it's great. It's you know, you live in the dream. Inspirational stuff. It's just, and you still got your feet on the ground as well, and so it's been an absolute pleasure spending the afternoon with you. You know, I wish every day could be like this. So I hope you guys have enjoyed listening to Carmen talk and play. When is the new album out? Because I don't know whether this video will go out and it still won't have been released.
It's going to be mid next year.
Oh, mid next year. Yeah. So 100%. But the singles.
So we already had one single, and then there's going to be a couple more at the beginning of next year.
All right, well, go and check those out. So it's Bones UK. Yeah, I think you'll like it. I really do. I think if you like guitars and you like this channel, I think you'll dig the music as well. So look, let's say goodbye, and we'll turn everything up, get dirty gain sounds, and see what happens for the last couple of minutes, if that's all right.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
Man, it's just an absolute pleasure. Welcome back to Guildford. Please don't leave it so long next time. Right, see you guys later. Thanks a lot for watching.